Happy New Year, everybody! I'm back from my vacation, here as usual with some data statistics and stuff. For example, what you see here, a turn count on when cEDH games ends, but also a pie chart around me on what player actually wins the games usually. So if you're new to this channel, I have been calculating data from various cEDH tournaments, looking at what win rate certain commanders get and what certain card choices achieve from those tournament decklists as well. But I've started a new project where I've been looking at, literally watching, cEDH gameplays from YouTube channels, a total of 200 so far. Literally like this while taking notes. Even writing down the cards like Demonic Consultation being casted or used in the game. Because that's something this kind of data calculation can't achieve. I can't watch the game, I can't see what people are playing, I can't see who they're playing against. I can only see, for example here, this tournament right here had a Shad L. Hilton win with 5 wins, 2 losses and 0 draws, and if we go here, we can look through his entire decklist and see what card choices he actually had, but we can't see what cards were being used to actually achieve that victory. For example, he has an Orcish Bowmaster, but maybe he never drew it in one of those 7 games he played. But look here, someone is casting a Submerge, and there's a Krark trigger and all of that stuff. Creating a copy of Submerge, we're noting that thing down, I promise. And we can also see that a Force of Will is being used to interact with this. And here is that dataset so far, basically. So for example, here we have game 116 from Play to Win with Nate, Dylan, Ryan, Cam. We have the date when it happened, we have the commanders, Nayela, we have Tana and Tymna, we have Daretti, and we have Krom and Tymna. We have the winner, player 3, which happens to be Ryan on Daretti, and we have the turn 6, that's when the game was over, when he won, and the win con was the One Ring. On every player entry, I have, first of all, decklist, that's the entire decklist that they have, which is, by the way, linked in the description below of every cEDH gameplay video, basically. Except from this guy. If we actually scroll down, we don't see any decklists whatsoever. Which is sadly why I haven't included any mental misstep gameplay videos. I'm looking at you, Alan. Because I can't. If there's no decklist, there's a limited amount of data available from that. So I'm just skipping those. Alan is not the only cEDH YouTube channel that I've excluded from this concept, basically. But then we have cards, and those are the cards that were played by the players. So if we actually take a look here, he's played Aetherfox Lesser War, Altar of the Brood, Arcane Signet, Ashnod's Altar, Bergi, God of Stalling, Chromox, Cloud Key, Dockside Extortionist. That's because this game actually took place pre-ban. Here is also Voltaic Key and the One Ring. And if we go back here, we see life, the life total they ended with, land count, how much lands they decklist basically contains, and comment. Now here you see a very funny thing. We see the One Ring, colon 55. That's the amount of cards that the One Ring drew in that game, which is why I actually made the win con being the One Ring. And if you remember, if we scroll all the way to the side here, we see that he did have a Voltaic Key, which helped achieve a higher total the One Ring count, basically. And from that we can do this kind of calculation. So far I have a total of 200 games, and in 54 of those games the One Ring appeared. Among those 54 games, the One Ring won was in the winning position of 20, while 34 in the losing position. And from that you can actually calculate a win rate from the One Ring as well. You could say, how often do you win if you put the One Ring in play? But just above my head you also see a draw rate of how many cards on average you draw when you are winning with the One Ring, and you see 10.6. While above here you see how many cards you draw if you're in the losing position, basically 3.7058. From watching a lot of 200 games, as you can see, I have noticed that the One Ring doesn't win games if it's usually casted like turn 4 or turn 5, because then it's usually drawing 3 cards total, because the game is going to end pretty soon. But in this case, when the One Ring actually drew like 55, the one we saw, it's because it was casted early and it had synergy to it, being able to draw into more cards, which eventually led into drawing your actual finisher. But the win con in that Rhetoric game from Play to Win was the One Ring drawing 55 cards. And we can do the same thing with a Mystic Remora. So we have 60 games from the 200 where Mystic Remora have appeared in the match. But now you have 18 in the winning position and 42 in the losing position. So the win rate of the Mystic Remora is lower than the One Ring. So here we can actually draw a conclusion, you could kinda say, that the One Ring seems to be better than Mystic Remora. Or you could say it like this. According to the data I have found here, indicates that the One Ring put into play versus Mystic Remora has a better win rate. We will get back to that very soon, but first I want to point out that you have a draw rate of 5.44444, it actually continued forever by the way, and a losing draw rate of 6.66666, which means that you're drawing more cards with Mystic Remora when you're losing the match. And there's a very simple answer to that. I've watched a lot of games where someone is casting Ad Nauseam. Mystic Remora draws a card, can't counterspell the Ad Nauseam, and then the Ad Nauseam starts to storm off by basically casting Ritual, Mana Rock, and then finalize into Thassa's Consult. And then, after the Mystic Remora have drawn 16 cards or so, they respond with a Force of Will. But then the Ad Naus player responds with a Pact Navigation, Force Navigation, and etc. because they have drawn more cards. So there's a lot of games where Mystic Remora is sitting there and drawing a lot of cards, but then just ends up losing anyway, because no one pays for fish, but no one really cares. But we can be a little bit more detailed in looking into how good certain cards are versus other cards to create something of a ranking system. So here we have Mystic Remora versus Orcish Bowmaster. And you can actually see Group 1 win rate 46.15 and Group 2 win rate 53.85. So we have 13 matches, and out of those, Orcish Bowmaster won 53% and Mystic Remora won 46%. And by the way, this is 13 matches where Orcish Bowmaster and Mystic Remora were in different positions. So you have a Mystic Remora that is winning when Orcish Bowmaster is in a losing player position, or vice versa. But also when, as you're looking down there, the group of Mystic Remora never had an Orcish Bowmaster of their own. And the same thing for Orcish Bowmaster, they never had a Mystic Remora of their own. So as a slight small preview, you could say that Orcish Bowmaster is better than Mystic Remora. However, the data sample size up there is 13 is rather low, so we can't say that for certainty. I ran a p-test on this as well for those who understand what p-tests are, and it was not significant trustworthy. And then I looked at other cards, for example, the One Ring, stronger than Orcish Bowmaster. That's what I've been up to until now, and what I'm going to keep on doing, increasing the total games, so that we, in the future, can see these things with more certainty, where I can actually say, I'm not saying right now that Orcish Bowmaster is stronger than Mystic Remora. We're starting to see something of a preview, and we will see if the trend keeps or if it shifts. They could be equally in power level too, of course. But is this method a really good one? I mean, we have silly YouTube cEDH players versus tournament cEDH players. Shouldn't players from this place be a lot better compared to YouTubers that just wants to make money from people watching their silly goofy little game IDs? The first thing I want to mention is that there are actually casual players entering into cEDH tournaments. This deck achieved a 5 losses, and I don't think that I would like to recommend this. I'm not gonna showcase whose deck this actually is, because we're not really into that, looking at the people's names and such. But I would actually like to view this as a not so recommended deck in general. And this isn't even the worst one. As I've been calculating data on various different tournaments, I have come across a lot of deck lists that I would deem casual. Or should I be that harsh? Not recommended would be a better approach to being kind to people. But the thing is also that YouTube players usually knows what they're doing. They're playing a lot of games. Like, Dylan and Cam kinda knows what they're up to. I hope. I believe that they know what they're doing, in my view. But we also have Tyler down there in the bottom, and he's actually a tournament player, who definitely I think he's won tournaments even. As well, here we have Ian, comedian, who is a tournament grinder that I have a lot of data on and can definitely prove that he is actually good at this game. He's usually scoring a win rate in tournaments around 40%, which is really good. So just because there are sometimes a little bit silly and goofy people on YouTube channels, they still actually know a thing or two of what they're up to. But this actually opens a very interesting discovery that the metagames and commander performance are sometimes apparently very different. For example, we have silly YouTube cEDH players. I have 18 games of Magda, where she has won 1 game and lost 17 of those, which gives her a win rate of 5.56%, which is very bad and definitely not so recommended. While tournament cEDH players have a total of 188 games with an amazing win rate of 23.05, which is really good. That's actually in the recommended spot. So Magda is good in tournaments, but terrible on YouTube gameplay. Why? The answer is actually really simple. You see, in tournaments, there's a lot of players that basically don't know exactly what Magda is up to. So there's a surprise effect. And I think one tournament, she actually won 7 games, 0 losses, because people didn't understand how Magda actually won. So they accidentally kingmaked her by removing a stacks piece, and Magda won in instant speed, just because players lacked knowledge about Magda. That's not the case in, like, YouTube games, because YouTubers or people that play on YouTube channels, they often know everything there is to know about every single command. Not in big detail, but enough to understand how to avoid losing to Magda, basically. You could actually say it like this. YouTube gameplay is more similar to your kitchen table on Friday night local game store when you and your 3 other buddies play every single week versus each other over and over. In cEDH tournaments, you go up against random people you don't even know, maybe it's the first time you ever met, and because of that, it's gonna be very hard to make political deals with each other. To actually make an example of this, you have "Is lying in cEDH okay question mark?" And we even have "Lying in cEDH." There's a lot of videos on this because it actually happened. There was a tournament where someone won by lying. Dylan and Cam can't do that. They literally can't to each other. Like, if Dylan starts lying to Cam, then Cam is never going to trust Dylan again, and they might be unfriends, or yeah, it's just not gonna, because then they can't make political deals in the next game. Lying in cEDH tournaments is easy. Lying to your buddies that you know when you're going to play against for the rest of your remaining life is harder, and comes with sometimes consequences. This means that making political deals in silly YouTube games and kitchen tables local game store every Friday night is easier, which means that you can deal with commanders like Magda easier compared to like in tournaments when political deals are harder. Therefore, I believe that these two different datasets are inherently different. What might be good in a tournament might not be as equally good versus your opponents that you're playing with. So if you're a tournament grinder, you might need to look into more of the tournament data, while if you're more into beating your buddies in your local game store, this kind of dataset might be better for you. But I definitely also think there's going to be some overlap where we can see that they're somewhere more or less equally worthy, or they are good takes from both sides. So far, the dataset of 200 games is rather small, so a lot of the things I've showcased in this video we can't really say for certain. However, this one is strong enough. I believe I can say with a very strong p-value that the average turn count where cEDH games ends is on turn 3, 4 and 5. Some games goes longer to turn 6, 7 and 8 and so forth, but they are a rarity, and a very big rarity. We also have somewhat of a strong indicator of a different seating order comes with a different percentage of win rate. We can clearly see here that player 1 is winning, but player 2 is winning more often, and then player 3 and 4 is winning less. This is actually a very interesting discovery. So player 2 is actually winning more than player 1. There's an actually very simple answer to why. So I've already said in this video that in casual cEDH local kitchen game stores or YouTube channels, there's more politics, there's more interaction potentially, which means that the first player to try to win is usually player 1 because they reach their win attempt first because they are first in turn order, but then they are being interacted with. So then we go to turn 2, or player 2, and now people have consumed their interaction and the field is open. This has been a consensus, a common knowledge, that the first player to actually try to win is the first player to fail to win, and the second person who is attempting to win is usually the one winning. So I actually believe that this might be correct, that player 2 might have a better win rate compared to player 1, but we will see if this actually stays true by adding more and more data to this dataset. I am personally really excited about this project, and I truly believe we can actually learn a lot of different things from it, looking at variations of how good cards are on more of an individual basis compared to like just looking at if they're inside a deck list or whatnot. We can actually see how they are performing during a match, how I kinda illustrated, but also weighing them against each other. So in the future I will definitely be back with more information of how much more I've learned from this. Probably with a video looking into and saying, is this card good or is this card bad? In the end, we will see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.